It has been a long wait for college football fans. The offseason is always a long time, and we no longer have to wait. Week zero is upon us, and we have a important game right off the bat. You get the Florida State Seminoles and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, two teams that are expecting some big things in 2024. And today we take a look at how this game should play out. Now, these two teams had successful years in 2023. These are two teams that saw good success. Georgia Tech obviously had a better year than expected. Florida State had a very eventful year, one in which they saw their team go undefeated in the regular season, win the ACC, and then unfortunately found themselves left out of the college football playoff. This team definitely has a chip on their shoulder coming into 2024, which is making them such an interesting team on top of the talent that Mike Gravel has brought in either from the recruiting trail or from the transfer portal. Now, a 13-1 season is definitely not anything that a lot of people would be disappointed in, but I think with how things ended in 2023, Florida State feels like they deserve more. Georgia Tech is looking to prove that last year wasn't a fluke, so that's something to build upon as well. And these are two teams that can put up some really impressive numbers offensively. Georgia Tech is hoping that their defense is going to be a little bit better than it was last year, but I think that they have quite a bit of talent that can make that happen. Currently, Florida State is an 11.5 point favorite as I'm recording this. Over under is 55.5. That'll be an interesting outcome if that plays out, but we're going to dive into what happens and why we think that happens here. Now, this is a series that hasn't been played a ton. Florida State currently leads that series 15-11 and one tie. And this is a team that lately, under Mike Norvell, feels like they're in a really good place in terms of winning football games, and they are looking at the college football playoff. Georgia Tech is looking to build upon the success from last year. Brent Key's done a great job so far of getting this team to believe in something that is winning football games and a program that is building something that I don't think a lot of people expected at this point heading into 2024. I think last people thought that 2023 was going to be a year of struggles, but that proved to be not the case. And that's really exciting if you're a Georgia Tech fan. So when you're looking at what are some burning questions for each side, I think one of the biggest things for Florida State is going to be, can DJU step up? DJ Uyunglele comes in from Oregon State via Clemson, and you're looking at a guy who it's almost like your floor is raised, but you don't have a super high ceiling. But how consistent can he be in big games? And the first game is always tough for both sides. Every team is going to have some struggles right off the bat. It's been a while since you played against some other competition. There are going to be some struggles right off the bat for each side. But DJ being able to step up in big games, we know that DJ can play well in games where Florida State is going to be the better team, but can he do that in big games when they matter? This one could be a big game early on. Georgia Tech is definitely a team that's going to play with a ton of confidence. And that defense, especially their secondary, is going to be a problem. We'll dive in that more in just a sec, but that's going to be a test for DJ and this Florida State offense. Last year for Georgia Tech, was that an anomaly? Yes, the 7-6 season is definitely not something that you're going to say it was a phenomenal year, but you saw the confidence in which this Georgia Tech team played. You saw a team that was playing much better than we saw in years past. So can they repeat that success? Can they build upon that success and be better? The matchup I'm very curious to watch is going to be Florida State's wide receivers against Georgia Tech's secondary. We talked about the Yellow Jackets secondary. That's a very good group. That's going to be extremely fun to watch when you look at what they have returning. We talked about in the deep dive series that we did. If you haven't, check out both Georgia Tech and Florida State. If you haven't already, I will link them in this video as well in the description below. Well, Miles Brooks is someone who's on everyone's radar and definitely on Florida State's radar. They know what he's capable of doing, and he is going to be a leader for this Georgia Tech defense. And it's a group that is going to test Florida State's wide receivers. Now, Florida State's wide receivers have a ton of talent. That is not a question. But in terms of proven commodities, I would say that they don't have a ton right off the bat. Now, I think that some of these guys are going to take some big steps, but can you do that consistently? And can you prove that your talent isn't just only that. It's not going to be untapped talent where you're not going to find ways to move the football down the field through the air. And this offense has plenty of options, plenty of weapons to utilize in both the rushing attack and the passing attack. But I think the big X factor is going to be how well can this team move the ball through the air against Georgia Tech's defensive backs. Georgia Tech has a really good secondary, and I think that they're going to be really fun to watch. They are definitely going to test Florida State right off the bat, and that's going to test Mike Norvell and Alex Atkins to find some adjustments, find some ways to move the football down the field, and see what this team is capable of doing. Florida State is definitely the better team in this game. I don't think anybody's really going to debate that. Even if you're in the Georgia Tech circles right now, I don't know if there's many places that you feel Georgia Tech is better, but it's not like it's a huge gap either. So this is a team in Florida State that is definitely the better team. They definitely have the better offense. They definitely have the more talented, maybe more proven defense as well. But there are definitely some aspects, the secondary, for example, that is definitely close to what Florida State has. So I can't count out Georgia Tech either. You just can't with how well they played last year. And you have a number of players that are going to step up for the Yellow Jackets and a number of players that you have to watch if you are a Georgia Tech fan or if you're a Florida State fan trying to figure out who do you need to worry about. We start with Haynes King. Haynes King had a solid year in 2023, 2,842 yards, 27 touchdowns. Like we mentioned in the deep dive series, you want to see him take care of the football better. This is a Florida State team that is going to eat you alive if you turn the ball over, and you're going to be in for a long game if Haynes King can't take care of the football. Now, part of that is finding ways to block this defensive line for Florida State, finding ways to keep them out of the backfield. That is going to be a huge key. So Georgia Tech's offensive line plays a huge role for that. And if they are, they're going to be able to spring loose guys like Haynes King. Now, King's a very good runner as well, had 737 yards on the ground and 10 touchdowns in 2023. You also have Jamal Haynes coming back. Trey Cooley is an interesting player from last year. You had a good tandem in 2023. You're hoping that you can find a good rushing attack once again, and you have the right players in place to do exactly that. The wide receivers, led by Eric Singleton, I think that Georgia Tech has plenty of options in the passing attack as well. They have good depth in their two deep. So Haynes King has options to hit downfield. It's going to be about creating separation, giving their quarterback time to throw, and finding ways to exploit this Florida State defense. Is not going to be easy, but that is definitely one of the keys. LaMiles Brooks, we mentioned before, he is a key player for Georgia Tech as well. Kevin Harris could play a huge role in thwarting Florida State's efforts. You're looking at a Florida State team that statistically wasn't super explosive, but also you know that they have the ability to score on any play. So finding ways to get to DJ Uiagalelei is going to be huge. So guys like Makia Scott, Kevin Harris on the edge, those guys play huge roles in getting to the quarterback and finding ways to disrupt this Florida State offense. If they're able to do that, you feel pretty good about Georgia Tech's chances to make this an interesting game. And it's going to be interesting to see how they put things together, put together a game plan. What does Tyler Santucci do to thwart and slow down this Florida State offense? You have a lot of firepower on the opposite side of the field, but don't discredit what Georgia Tech has as well. They have plenty of talent that is ready to prove their worth. They have guys that have a chip on their shoulder, and that defense for Georgia Tech could provide some major obstacles for Florida State. Now, going over to the Seminoles side, we talked about DJU. When you watch DJ play at Clemson and Oregon State, we'll start with the Clemson. You had times at Clemson where you felt pretty good about what DJ wanted to do and his talent level, but ultimately you also spread the writing on the wall, as did he, where it just wasn't going to work out. So he transfers to Oregon State, and Oregon State didn't have, the Clemson type talent. And I thought that DJ did a pretty good job of adapting to his surroundings and found ways to be effective, but you didn't see a guy who was going to elevate this team against really good competition. And that's going to be the big question again. What is he capable of doing for this offense? And what is he capable of doing for Florida State to get them to that next level? This is a team that very much has their sights set on the college football playoff. And they're looking to, again, they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. Even the guys coming in, they understand what the people that are still there went through last year. They may not fully understand it, but they can see it in these guys and what they experience last year, being left out of the college football playoff for a ton. And that's definitely something that's been reminded to them every single week. And DJ plays a big role in helping them achieve their goals this year. Joining him in his offense is going to be plenty of talent. We talked about the wide receivers. Everyone's got their eyes on that group of wide receivers. So guys like Malik Benson, Hakeem Williams have the tools to be explosive, but can they put it together on the field? You also have Ja'Kai Douglas, who was explosive last year in limited action, 14 catches, averaged 17.4 yards per catch. So this is someone who can be a big time player for Florida State. But again, you have to find the chemistry. You have a lot of new pieces coming in. You have different pieces of the puzzle that have to fit together, and you're just kind of try to figure out who goes where. On the defensive side of the ball, you feel probably a little bit better. Adam Fuller's group was very solid in 2023, a very good group defensively, and they returned quite a bit of talent despite some of the losses they have. Up front, you have Patrick Payton coming back. Everyone expects him to be an absolute stud. And how could you not with the production you see from him last year? Joshua Farmer's kind of an underrated defensive tackle. I think they did a good job of reloading up front. The linebackers will be interesting too, led by DJ Lundy. That'll be a fun group to watch. That's probably the X factor of this defense. And then the secondary. Fentrell Cypress is back, and he is a big time player for this team. And this is a Georgia Tech second or wide receiver group that is going to test them. They are definitely going to provide some challenges. Eric Singleton is a very underrated wide receiver, but you can bet that Adam Fuller and this defensive staff know exactly who he is, and they know what they need to do to shut him down. It's just a matter of executing. And it's going to be tough because Singleton in that passing attack could be very problematic for this team. And this is a Georgia Tech team that was also very good. They finished 13th running the football. So that front six, front seven, whatever it's going to be for Florida State has to be up to speed as well. Now, when it comes to this game, this feels like a Florida State win. Yes, things may be sloppy right off the bat. That very well could be what happens, but this is definitely a Florida State team that is better than Georgia Tech. If Georgia Tech can get off to a hot start and maybe hit Florida State in the mouth when they're not ready, then you maybe see this team take a step and find ways to surprise this Florida State team. But for now, it feels like Florida State is the better team, even with some of their new pieces coming in. And it feels like the Seminoles will take this in Dublin and get their season off to a 1-0 start.